Assalamu alaikum. Many thanks to Sheikh Mufti Akudi there, mashallah, presenting us the Alim question program. As always, very informative. But more importantly, he puts the most complicated topics in very simple English to understand. So we're very grateful to him, as always. It's 8:30. We're live from the studios here of British Muslim TV, here in Wakefield, with this week's edition of Questions with me, Mohammed Shafiq. Wherever you are around the world, a very warm welcome. Now we're broadcasting Sky Channel 752 and across social media at the handle British Muslim TV. We want you to comment on the big story we are covering tonight. As it's Islamophobia Awareness Month, we dedicate the whole program to Islamophobia. You can call us now on 01924 231 083 or messages on the WhatsApp number, which is on the screen now. And if you're watching on Facebook, post your comments in the chat box, and we'll read some of them on air shortly. November is Islamophobia Awareness Month, as I said, and throughout the month, we've seen events, conferences, social activity to highlight the injustice of Islamophobia and the impact on communities. There was a debate in the House of Commons yesterday, and that was broadcast here live on British Muslim TV. Now, shortly we head to Leeds to talk to the government's independent advisor on Islamophobia, Imam Qari Asim MBE, on the importance of this month, his leadership, and the state of Muslims here in the UK. We then head to London to talk to Aqeela Ahmed, MBE. She's the chair of the cross-government working group on anti-Muslim hatred, on the state of Islamophobia in the UK and the ever-increasing physical attacks we are seeing on Muslim women. This follows the horrific abuse that a couple of Muslim women faced this week, in which their child had to witness an atrocious amount of abuse. So we'll be talking about that. As I said, the story coming out of the United States, Ahmed Arbery case. You remember Ahmed Arbery, who was shot dead by 3 white men? That case has just in the last hour or so concluded, and all 3 men have been found guilty of the murder of Ahmed Arbery. Gregory McMichael, Travis McMichael, and William Roddy Bryan Jr. They were both charged. All 3 were charged with malice and felony murder. There was national outcry after that video of his shooting was made public. He was jogging in Brunswick in Georgia when he was shot in 2020, and all 3 of them have been found guilty, and they'll be sentenced at a later date. So a significant moment for that family, but also for race relations in the United States. Let's see. We'll keep an eye on what is coming out of the United States in regards to that. So we want to hear from you tonight. You can call us 01924 231 083. Messages on British Muslim TV across social media. Alternatively, yes, you know, WhatsApp. Yes, you can send us a message on WhatsApp. I was going to say send us a message anonymously on WhatsApp. You could do that as well. We don't need to know your name. The questions we're considering tonight: how important is Islamophobia Awareness Month? What can the government and police do to stop these attacks? And do Muslims need to accept the reality of life and change to suit the environment in which we are living? Please share your thoughts on 01924 231 083 and share your comments. We'll read some of them throughout the program. Now let's get started on our first story. Islamophobia is a term first highlighted in 1997 as an inclusive term to describe the bigotry, violence, threats and racism faced by Muslims and those that are perceived as Muslims. The final report, Islamophobia, A Challenge for Us All, was launched in November 1997 by the then Home Secretary and MP for Blackburn, Jack Straw. Now, the all-party parliamentary group on British Muslims, after consultation with Muslim organisations and communities, came up with a definition. And a summary of that is, I quote, Islamophobia is rooted in racism and is a type of racism that targets expressions of Muslimness or perceived Muslimness. The Labour Party, Liberal Democrats, Plaid Cymru, SNP and the Scottish Conservatives have adopted this definition, but the government and the Conservative Party nationally in the UK have refused to accept this community-inspired definition. Many local councils around the country have accepted also the definition, and British Muslims have expressed alarm that their community are the sole community not to be afforded a right to determine their own definition. Since 2012, Islamophobia Awareness Month has been established to highlight the importance of highlighting these crimes and working to bring communities together. Imam Qari Asim MBE is the senior Imam of Makkah Mosque in Leeds. He's a legal director of the global law firm DLA Piper. He's the chair of the Mosque and Imam National Advisory Board, MINAB, and he's a senior editor of Imams Online, as well as being a trustee of the Christian Muslim Forum, which works to bring communities together. Imam Qari Asim is based in Leeds and has been appointed by Boris Johnson and the Conservative government to help define a definition of Islamophobia. Pleased to say Imam Qari Asim is my guest for the next hour. Yes, full hour with him. So we're really blessed and honoured to have him here on British Muslim TV. Sheikh Qari Imam Asim, assalamu alaikum rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome back to the programme, sir. Thank you for honoring us with your presence.
Wa alaikum assalam wa barakatuh. Brother Mohammed Shafiq, it's a great honour to be joining you this evening and talking about a really important topic. And I'm really grateful to British Muslim TV for hosting a debate on this very pertinent issue that affects and impacts on millions of people in this country.
Now, I know we spent some beautiful moments in Pakistan recently. Tell us tell our viewers about your tour. How was it and what did you get up to when you were there, apart from spending some time with me?
So it was really a blessed occasion that we were in Pakistan together for some time. So I went to Pakistan. It was a time of Miladun Nabi, the celebrations, and showing gratitude to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for blessing us with the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the mercy to all the worlds. And so the Pakistani government, both the presidential house and the prime minister, was hosting a Milad event, participated in that, but also attended a number of religious gatherings, in particular with His Excellency Sheikh Hassan Hasibur Rahman Sahib, the custodian of Astana Aliyah Muhammadiyah Eidgah Sharif. And we were together with yourself as well in Kohat and Gamgol Sharif for their annual gathering of Hazrat Bisab there. And so it was, I think when you go to Pakistan, it's obviously it's a very blessed time that you spend with your family and friends, but also these religious gatherings spiritually uplift your soul. It was especially, I think, this time after 2 years of not being able to travel, or 18 months of not being able to travel. It was a huge relief that after the red list, Pakistan had been removed from the red list, that people were able to go together. And there were so many people actually from here that we met there whilst we were all there. So it was a really enjoyable time.
Yeah, and it was just nice to be able to relax and do things and meet people that you, as you said, wouldn't necessarily have the opportunity to do that. Now, tell us, how important is Islamophobia Awareness Month to you?
It's extremely important that we appreciate the different aspects of this term, Islamophobia. And one of the key things is about raising awareness, because in 2010, that's now going back 11 years, Barna Sayyid argued that Islamophobia had passed the dinner table test, and it's been growing ever since. But sadly, there are still people in our society that refer to anti-Muslim hatred, anti-Muslim prejudice, anti-Muslim sentiments as overblown propaganda. Or sometimes they refer to Islamophobia as the hate crime epidemic is a self-sustaining myth. You know, this is something that was quoted in Spectator in 2017. And so it's really important that people, not only just the Muslim community, but also everyone in our society realizes that if one community, one group of people is being victimized, is being abused, is being demonized because of their faith identity, then that's not a sign of a healthy society. And when we talk about there being, Islamophobia, this is not just something that that Muslims are discussing. This is something that's actually recorded by the government data. So, time and again, the Home Office data that's been published, refers to anti-Muslim hatred as something that's huge. So, out of the the religiously motivated hate crime that's recorded by the Home Office, around 45%. So that's nearly half of the religiously motivated hate crime is against Muslims or towards Muslims. And in the House of Lords on the 15th of November, the government spokesman in the House of Lords, Lord Greenhalgh, he mentioned that it's quite correct, and this is I'm quoting him. He said, it's quite correct to say that nearly half, around 45% of religiously motivated hate crime was against Muslims.
Yeah.
And then he went on to say that obviously what the government is doing about it. So this is not something that's just happening. Now, having said all of that, I think we also acknowledge that Britain is one of the most tolerant countries in the world. And this, when we talk about awareness around Islamophobia, the point is that we do not let these fringes become more normalized in our society.
I'm just going to ask you one question because we've got a couple of minutes before our break. And that is around the fact that people say that Muslims are using Islamophobia as a way to stop critical analysis of Islam or questioning Muslims about the faith. What's your reaction to that?
Muslims are very clear that Islamophobia is not about protecting the faith. It's not about stopping people critiquing the faith. No, the faith has been critiqued ever since its inception. And it will continue to do so. There are literally hundreds of books that are written pretty much every year about the faith, just like other faiths as well. People are free to express their views about the faith. This is about protecting harm, integrity of an individual and protecting harm to an individual because of their religious identity.
And do you think... Got about 40. Okay, we've got 40 seconds. I'm just trying to make some time up as we go to that break. Imam Qari Asim is staying with us. As I said, he's our special guest for the whole hour of the first hour of the program. And then we'll hear from Aqeela Ahmed. Very important. But as I said, this breaking story happening from the United States, which is a significant moment if you look for just coming through Black History Month. The trial of the murderers of Ahmed have been found guilty. 3 men have been found guilty. We'll talk about that and certainly continue our conversation with the Honourable Qari Imam Asim joining us there from Leeds. We'll take a very quick break. I promise you it's going to be very quick and we'll be back and continue the conversation. Join us on the other side of this. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome back to Questions with me, Mohammed Shafiq. I told you it was going to be a really short break. We are really honoured and privileged to have the one and only Imam Qari Asim from Leeds with us. And Imam Saab, just before the break, we were talking about that way in some people saying the term Islamophobia is being used to stop the critique of the faith or the challenge or the question. You would just finish that point off. What's your view around that accusation that is being made by some in government, but some in wider society, that's why that term is unacceptable?
I think sometimes people perceive the term Islamophobia very differently to how Muslims perceive the term. So this is about, when we talk about Islamophobia, it's about protecting individuals, ensuring that no one is abused or harmed because of their faith or because of their religious identity. And this is not about stopping anyone critiquing the faith or writing something about the faith. People are free to do so. And this is also not about introducing blasphemy law through the back door. Sometimes people also think that this is what Muslims are trying to do. Absolutely not. This is about protecting people who are being abused on a daily basis, especially online and also on our streets. So, many of you who have joined us today and are viewing this program would have come across either yourself or your family member who's been abused because of their religious identity. So, for instance, if someone has been abused, a young girl who's been called names and has been told that she's cancer or Europe will vomit you out. Comments like that stay with you for the rest of your lives. They are, this is impacting on people's lives. And that particular girl, quite rightly, then every time she goes to the supermarket, she's looking over her shoulder. This is not sign of a healthy society. People should not be abused because of their faith. And we saw that in the 20th century, how when it started, this hatred does not happen in a vacuum, or genocides don't happen in a vacuum. They start with people accepting hatred towards a group of people, or people accepting negative stereotypes of a particular group, and then that then leads to violence, and then violence sadly leads to genocides. Now, and we saw that only 26 years ago in Europe, in Bosnia, people were murdered, massacred, and genocide happened because of their faith. And it's also happened to the Jewish community. And so we need to learn lessons from that and ensure that, we and this is not something that just for Muslims to do, but rather, we don't expect someone who's been abused by their own spouses, or someone suffering domestic violence or otherwise, to actually just fight their own corner. Rather, we want the whole society to reach out to that person and stand by that person. So here, a similar issue, whether it's racism, whether it's anti-Muslim hatred, or whether it's any other form of hatred, this is about all of us standing together to protect individuals, not faith. And also another point I want to make is sometimes people think, well, having a definition of Islamophobia will actually undermine the work that's been done over the years against terrorism. Again, this is a misconstrued idea, because actually Islamophobia plays into the hands of extremists like ISIS and Daesh and other groups, just like it plays into the hands of extremists on the other side of far-right extremism. So it's really important that we recognize the existence of Islamophobia and how it impacts on individuals and protect those individuals, because they are fellow British citizens.
Now, as a public figure, I know that I've been subjected to those death threats and abuse. How have you coped with that, being such a public figure and being out there on this particular issue and being a prominent British voice? How do you cope with that hate?
I think it comes with the territory, being threatened, and actually I have had police protection over the years at certain times, because certain individuals were quite advanced in their plans to do certain things. And I think it's not just about myself, but it's actually about family, young children, and the fear and anxiety that it naturally brings to one's family and how one interacts with others. I don't want to go into detail, but literally being followed in the car by people, and so it just shows. And when investigated, ultimately, actually, you do find undertones of Islamophobia in those people who are who are threatening you, because when you talk about actually community cohesion, when you talk about fighting and tackling hate crime and extremism, then it really unsettles those people who do want to divide communities, who do want to spread hatred, who do want extremism to flourish. It really hits them on their heads, and as a result, then they resort to such abuse and violence, whether online or otherwise.
We were talking about the threat from terrorism and somehow that being used by commentators in the media, but also politicians and government ministers to try to stop that definition of Islamophobia. How do you think we as a community should react to that light that is being shone on us when it comes to the threat from terrorism from within our own midst?
I think that we've realized that actually there are people within our community who are either radicalized or young impressionable individuals manipulated online or underground, and as a result, they've been manipulated and radicalized by people who have their own political or personal agendas. And just like Brother Shafiq, you have been from the very outset, have been standing up against such threats and calling it out. So when we do see wrongs in our own community or regressive cultural practices, it is actually very much following the teachings of Islam, that we should stand on the side of justice, and we should be on the side of justice, because the Holy Quran says, that this is aqrabu lit-taqwa, that actually standing on the side of justice is much closer to God consciousness and something that's loved by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So whether it's the issues of sex grooming or racism within our own community, or extremism in our own community, we should isolate those elements and actually be clear that they do not necessarily represent or do not showcase what the community is all about. At the same time, where people are portraying the whole community in a negative light and stereotyping the whole community, then we should also stand up and say, actually, this is not acceptable. So, for instance, we saw that sometimes the media, sections of the media portray the sexual grooming as a Muslim problem. Absolutely wrong. And therefore, we should call it out. But on the one hand, call it out where we are being misrepresented, but also at the same time, where we see negative elements within our society, within our community, we should also call them out. And this is not about washing our laundry in public. Yeah. This is about what's right and what's wrong. And it's someone, Joe Blogg, who's in Leeds or in Nottingham or in Luton, who's doing something. He's just an individual who happens to be from the Muslim community. It's not like we shouldn't really, neither Muslim nor anyone else should think that this is all about Muslims and Muslims are doing this and Muslims are doing that. Absolutely not. We should isolate individual cases and should not conflate criminality with the faith itself, which sadly some newspapers do.
And then do you feel that we as British Muslims, we're quite inward looking, and we sometimes forget that outreach and engagement we have to do with wider society? Is there a fair reflection of the challenges we face?
I think we as a community are maturing, and we're realizing that just having an inward looking or inward kind of outlook on life is not something that's going to help us. I think sadly some of the spotlight on us has accelerated that process, which would have naturally happened over the years. So in a way, it's really it's not a great way of expressing this, but actually the tragic events like 7/7 or 9/11 helped people in the West understand that this is their home, and therefore we need to find our ground in where we live. And reach out to communities to protect our own community, but also at the same time, this is what our Islam teaches us. So the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, being the savior of mankind, the benefactor of mankind, he was very outward looking. Even in the early days of Medina, when Muslims migrated to Medina after having suffered Islamophobia for 13 years, and the Islamophobia was rife in Meccan society. People were losing their lives because of anti-Muslim hatred that they experienced and suffered in Mecca. Despite all of that, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when he went to Medina, he didn't say that we need to set up an exclusive society. Rather, he reached out to people of other faiths and other communities and said, we are ummah wahida, we are one nation, and we will stand up against those who come to harm us. We will have our different faiths and we will have our different values, but one thing that we agree on is the universal compassion. And that is something that's common in all faiths. So now, but we saw that, and this is what's happening now up and down the country. So we saw during COVID, the pandemic, people the mosques offering their spaces to local hospitals, mosques actually being turned into food bank centers and food.
And so vaccination centers as well. Come on, read the Jummah, come on, read the Namaz, and get your vaccine as well.
PR exercise first. This is not PR exercise first. No. This is what our faith tells us. Now, obviously,
because in a sense, Imam Sahib, you don't just talk a good talk. You look good on TV. You talk a good talk. You actually practically do these things at grassroots level in your mosque in Leeds, but also through all the other mosques at that part of Minab.
Yeah, absolutely. I think so. So just this Sunday was Mitzvah Day, which is a Jewish a concept of volunteering and giving donations. So we Muslims went out and bought some food items.
Okay,
And
just pause there. Sorry, Imam Saab. We just need to take another quick break. When we come back, we'll continue the important conversation around Islamophobia, and I promise you we'll open the lines as well. 01924 231 083 is our number, and we'll take your calls, and we've got some comments on social media which we'll also include. Join us on the other side of this. Welcome back to Questions with me, Mohammed Shafiq, exclusively here on British Muslim TV. We're live from our studios here in Wakefield. We're taking your calls now on 01924 231 083, or put my teeth back in, get in touch with us on our social media handles. It's quite a mouthful, isn't it? British Muslim TV. Imam Qari Asim is my special guest joining us live from Leeds. Imam Sahib, before the break, we were talking about the sense that you don't just talk the talk, as some would claim, good PR person that you are, but you're actually practicing this at a grassroots level. And I just wanted to look at, when we look at the life of Rasulallah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wasallam, what do we learn about interfaith from his life and his sunnah?
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Our faith is universal faith, and it contains universal values, and it is until the end of time. So therefore, there's inclusivity in there. One thing that you can say about the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he was very inclusive, and he championed so many causes, tackling violence against women on the one hand, to protecting the environment on the other hand, to helping the poor, irrespective of their faith, and at the same time reaching out to those who may be very strong enemies of his. So this was his character, and that requires genuine compassion for others, but also at the same time it requires the understanding that actually you have to earn the respect of others. What's happening, and there was a lot of misconception about Islam and about the Prophet ﷺ at the time. So a couple of examples just to highlight how inclusive he was. So a delegation comes to Medina Munawwara, and the delegation of Christian faith leaders, and so here we have the Prophet ﷺ, who's the governor of Medina, who's the Prophet of Allah, and he's trying to bring people back to the original faith, to the oneness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this Christian delegation comes to meet the Prophet ﷺ, and a lot of companions offer to host this delegation, because they had learned from the Prophet ﷺ that a guest is a guest irrespective of their faith. But the Prophet hosts this delegation of Christian leaders in the mosque itself, in Masjid al-Nabawi, where we believe that actually to pray one time is like, you earn the reward of 50,000 prayers. And then not only that the Prophet of Allah hosts this delegation in the mosque itself, but actually allows them to express themselves and also allows them to worship in the mosque itself. That shows how inclusive he was, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and he was the founder of interfaith relations for the Muslim community. So when Muslims reach out and open the doors of the mosque and do all sorts of things to welcome other faith communities and people of all faiths and beliefs, then that is actually following the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. And as chair of Mosque Imam's National Advisory Board, Minab, I'm really proud to see that we have now mosques that are doing a variety of things to serve their communities, and that by that means wider communities. And actually, on the 4th of December, we are having an awards night, Beacon Mosque Award, which is this is 4th year running, where we hundreds of mosques have been nominated for the fantastic services that they offer to their community. So I think we are on a journey, and things are getting better for us community, and long they may continue.
Munna Hussein on social media, let's take some of your comments. Says She's a nurse, works in the NHS, and she's been abused, Islamophobic abuse, but also she worked through this pandemic. We know that so many people from our community died on the front line of the NHS. What can you say to Muna to reassure her?
Firstly, I'm really sad to hear that you've been abused, Mona. And this is not sign of a healthy society. And whenever someone abused, this is we should all be mourning the fact that someone's been abused, and also working in our own capacity, in our own ways to tackle hatred, and in particular anti-Muslim hatred, which is reaching alarming rate. We actually did a study, anti-Muslim hatred working group, and I know Aqeela Ahmed, who's going to come after me, she's the chair of the anti-Muslim hatred working group, and we did a study that actually to see that anti-Muslim hatred went up during the pandemic. That was very shocking to me, at least, because I thought where people are pouring their hearts out for others, and we are standing out there clapping for the NHS, and we are doing everything to serve those who are putting their lives at risk to save others. And so many Muslims work in the NHS, and they actually put their lives on the line to help others. And those people are not being valued, and those people are being actually abused because of their faith. Then it really hurts my feelings, and I'm sure it hurts everyone else. So I think in terms of message of reassurance is that please carry on as seeing it as an act of worship, that you are helping others, you are trying to save lives, you're trying to bring peace to others, and may Lord of the heavens and the earth bless you in your endeavors and bring peace to you in your life as well.
Mohammed Said says, how do we look to the outside world? You come from Pakistan. How do Pakistan view the British Muslim community and what we have to do?
I think the rest of the world in a way looks up to people in Britain because of the values that we represent, because of the resources that we have in this country. And we Muslims should make the most of those resources. We see that actually, the opportunities are there, and we see that the doors do open and we see increasingly seeing many Muslims in the parliament, many Muslim very successful entrepreneurs, and people are going into different professions, and this is hugely reassuring. At the same time, there is implicit discrimination. There is, the studies have been done that if you have a Muslim name and if you change your name to an English-sounding name and you send the same CV to employers, then one of you is called for an interview and the other one isn't, and you can guess which one is that's called and which one is that isn't called. So that shows in terms of the implicit discrimination that exists, and that is in a way partly fed by sections of the media, by irresponsible politicians making reckless comments, and sometimes deliberate comments to normalize hatred, normalize anti-Muslim sentiments. But we should not let those kind of behaviors let us down. We should aspire to achieve the best things in this country, so that people who already look up to us, we can showcase them how, despite the challenges, we did our best to portray Islam in a positive light and also bring about justice not only in our own country but also across the world.
And then you did something really significant in the run-up to COP26 that just concluded in Glasgow. You had that Friday sermon where the mosque were talking about climate change. What made you take that leadership role and do such an important initiative in the run-up to COP?
Yeah, I think so. So through the platform of Minab, we do a different type of work around raising awareness. So we've done raising awareness about domestic violence, about fostering, about Islamophobia, and also you mentioned climate change. I think so. First, the two aspects to whenever we do a Friday sermon, and that sermon is then delivered by mosques across the country. and it raises awareness around the particular issue in the Muslim community. So firstly, I think not many Muslims know themselves that actually our primary sources, the Holy Quran and the Hadith, categorically talk about being environmentally conscious individuals. The Prophet ﷺ, spoke out against being wasteful. And we've seen this deforestation and toxic waste being thrown into waters, and also across and things happening where we are abusing the planet that's given to us by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and Allah made us custodian of the planet and trustee of the planet. And if a trustee distorts the trust and abuses that trust that's been that's been conferred upon them, then obviously this is not really discharging the duties in the best way possible. So I think we Muslims need to see this issue of climate crisis and climate injustice not as something that's just that's just in the public debate now, but actually seeing that it's a part of act of worship. That the Prophet ﷺ informed us about, him saying that even if you had a small plant in your hand and you were planting that, a seed in your hand, and you were planting that in the ground, and the day of judgment came. In other words, that effectively, that you are going to be, there's going to be nothing left. That the Prophet said you should still carry on planting that seed. There are multiple messages in this hadith of the Prophet ﷺ. One thing is that we should strive hard, but it's very interesting that the Prophet gives the example of planting something, so doing something, so becoming environmentally conscious. That there will come a time when we will be suffering a climate crisis and our own lives will be at stake. But the Prophet gives us that message that we should plant the trees and we should carry on being environmentally conscious. And that in a way, if I could just very briefly say that one thing is that the governments need to do a lot to save the planet, but also we need to become environmentally conscious. That means possibly looking at our lifestyles. We consume meat a lot, and that kind of, in a way, affects our health as well. But actually, the production of meat takes up a lot of water and natural resources. So just looking at things how we can do this, and Minab has done a lot of work. We produce resources to help people become environmentally conscious.
Okay, Imam Qari Asim, I don't know where the time has gone. We've got you for one more segment. I know you're gonna stay there, and we're gonna come back and talk in more detail about what is happening around Islamophobia. We will also be joined by Aqeela Ahmed, who is the chair of the anti-government, cross-government anti-Muslim hatred group as well, but also, as we're saying, break down that story as well. The Ahmed Abri murder trial is concluded in the United States. All three men, white men who were charged with his murder, have been found guilty in the United States. We'll take a break. When we come back, we'll continue the conversation with Imam Asim. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome back to Questions with me, Mohammed Shafiq, exclusively here on British Muslim TV. We are live here on a Wednesday evening. We hope you have had a great day. And we are joined by a very special person, Imam Qari Asim from Leeds. Imam Sahib, we're coming towards the end of our time together. We've got one final segment. So much more I want to talk to you about. But one is around that definition. The all-party parliamentary group for British Muslims have adopted this definition. Communities have adopted it. Organisations, political parties. Yet the government chooses not to adopt it. And in their defence, the government says they've appointed you to look at that definition. But it's been over 2 years since you were appointed. And where's the resource? Have you been given resource so you can do this work?
Yeah, firstly, I think so. There is no universally accepted definition of Islamophobia, and we very much need so for a number of reasons. Firstly, because it will actually deter people who want to who want to cause harm to others because of the religious identity of Muslims. Secondly, sometimes people say, well, Islamophobia undermines free speech, but actually, once we've established the red boundaries, then it will help those people to express themselves as long as they're outside the red line boundary of Islamophobia. And this is something that's the first step. It won't be a legally binding definition, but actually it will help HR departments across the country, local councils, everyone to introduce into their policies to protect people from harm, people of Islamic faith, and people who are being abused because of their faith, Islam. So APPG and British Muslims, they most recently, they defined Islamophobia, and then the government appointed me as the advisor to define Islamophobia. At the time of the announcement, there was this announcement that another independent advisor will be appointed and we will work together to define Islamophobia. I think that hasn't happened yet, and as a result, the work hasn't really started. Obviously, pandemic hit us as well, but I'm hopeful that recently in the House of Commons, and also in the House of Lords, the government spokespeople and ministers and Secretary of State have mentioned that we do need to tackle and address anti-Muslim hatred, and they also made reference to anti-Muslim hatred working group and also the independent advisor being appointed to define Islamophobia. So I hope that now that our pandemic work will start, and this is something that cannot really be delayed because it impacts people's lives, and people's lives are being affected by the growing and alarming rate of Islamophobia.
Yeah, and a real sense that Michael Gove, who's been described as a neoconservative, is accused of Islamophobia, obviously, which he denies, is now the Secretary of State in charge of this agenda. And as you said, it's 2 years have gone by. Do you ever think that the Conservatives will accept whatever you propose, or if you propose a definition?
So firstly, this will not be in a way just my definition. It will be something that will have broad-based consensus. It will be something that's practical, something that can be implemented, and this is effectively, it will be in a way based on many definitions that are already in circulation. So this is we're hoping that something that we can devise and define based on the work that's already out there, but also at the same time consulting communities and taking their views on board, as well as alleviate the concerns that the establishment may have around having a definition of Islamophobia or anti-Muslim hatred to capture the anti-Muslim sentiments that are in circulation, that are around in our country.
Yeah, and how do you feel about the fact that we're the only community that is being told that you can't define the hatred and racism and bigotry towards it? The Jewish community were able to have their own definition, and that was accepted by the government. But yet, when it comes to the Muslim definition of Islamophobia, we get issues around free speech, we get issues around the conversation we had earlier on. Do you understand the frustration that exists within young Muslims around the fact that this government isn't moving on this?
Yeah, I can see the frustration around not having a definition of Islamophobia, and I think that's why it's important that communities and the establishment work together to actually address the issue of Islamophobia and anti-Muslim hatred. And the quicker we are able to do that, the better it is for all of us, not just Muslims, but for the whole society, because it's a menace that's affecting our society, and it's in a way staying on our society, that there are some people who feel intimidated, some people who are being abused, some people who have anxiety and fear because of their religious identity. In 21st century, in 2022, 2021, that's not something that should be acceptable to any person of good faith or goodwill.
Yeah, and just as I said, we're coming towards the end. Do you think ISIS, which is starting to reappear in Syria and Iraq. We thought it had been defeated. Do you still think that threat exists?
Yeah, I think ISIS or Daesh or any other group, this is about this. It's not about dismantling just groups. It's about dismantling an ideology, and also looking at the causes, that give rise to those groups emerging. So this is, I think, what will sadly continue to happen. That ideology or some of those people will start to move towards Yemen or other places, and so this is something that's going to carry on. So we need to tackle that ideology. Now, how do you tackle that ideology? You can't just bomb an ideology. You need to challenge people, and that's something that governments extremism is a universal in a way, and it's a generational phenomenon. It's a global issue that all of us need to work together. As far as the Muslim community is concerned, I think we also need to look inward and see whether we are how are we addressing our young people being manipulated, being radicalized, not only just to do with extremism, but just generally speaking, there seems to be less tolerance towards others and accepting of others' views. Sometimes there are personal reasons why some of our young people are attracted to the ideology that those who have twisted understanding of the faith represent, and it could be because of a broken home or relationship that's broken at home. It could be something that young people are not finding anything in common with their family members, and as a result, they're more attracted online to people across the globe. All of these issues need to be addressed, because that is part and parcel of our faith, that we have a strong family that's based on love, not on fear or aggression.
Yeah. And how do you sense that, as an imam working in Leeds, but also that national leadership role, you often get criticized, what you say, what you do, or what you don't say. How do you cope, and how do you balance all those responsibilities? Because in a sense, people are looking to you for leadership as well.
Yeah, I think I'm very clear in terms of what I do. This is not PR for me. This is not to please anyone. This is what's right.
You're not on the government payroll. You're not in a secret society.
Actually, I think I've never had any pay from the government as such. I think it's just perception. People, we label people as being on others' payrolls, or on dollars for scholars, or sellouts. This is not going to advance our community in any way. We need to accept that there's diversity in our communities, and diversity of thought is important. We need to nourish it. We need to help people flourish, and we need to help each other, because sometimes, I often say that maybe a person who who's in the mosque all day long, and a person who's a civil servant or working in the media actually can do more to advance the Muslim community and to help people understand what the true values of Islam are. So we need to be a bit more accepting of each other and allow people that space, which very much the Prophet ﷺ allowed. He had a diverse group of people around him, and he nourished those people in different ways. Now we get into too much infights, whether it's between scholars, whether it's between our political leaders, whether it's between the leaders and the community, and that in a way energies are being wasted on these frivolous issues which don't get us anywhere, rather actually hold us back.
And what can we look forward to, sir, in your work in the coming year of 2022?
I think I hope that the work of defining Islamophobia, is proactively addressed, and we come up with the work that's much needed to reassure communities, but also because it acts as a tool in the hands of far-right extremists to radicalize more people. So I think that's really important. The other work, I think, through Minab and Beacon Mosque, what we're trying to do is raise standards of the mosque, and we have huge success stories that we should celebrate. I think also a lot is happening in our community, and we should just help each other and support each other wherever we can to advance our own community.
Yeah, and finally, I promise you my final question. Hopefully we'll see the pressure on the NHS, COVID, vaccination uptake increasing within our communities. Because can I just say, as a direct result of the work that you did and I did and many others did, we were able to increase that vaccination uptake on the back of lots of fake news. So congratulations on that as well, sir.
Yeah, no, thank you. I think, again, that was driven by our faith, that we wanted to help save lives. And this also saw, I think pandemic helped us see that we are all dependent on each other. You know, as Muslims, we believe that we are dependent on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but we're also dependent on each other. And when we work together, we can turn things around. We turn the tide of lack of confidence in the vaccine by working together. And we can do so many other fantastic things and amazing things. I want to thank every single individual who put their lives at risk, who helped, who went out of their way to help others, and long that may continue.
Well, sadly, we've reached the end of our time together. I want to take this opportunity to say thank you, sir, for your leadership. I know we've got a friendship, but also when we disagree, we do so with honour and respect. And you're a very important figure in our community, and we salute you, sir. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for everything that you do, Brother Mohammed Shafiq. And I think, yeah, we know that there are different views that we hold on different things, and that's absolutely fine. That's part of diversity in our faith and in our community.
That's what makes you great. Thank you so much, Imam Qari Asim, the MBE, joining us live from Leeds. Now, after the break, we head to London, talk to Aqeela Ahmed on Islamophobia and the impact on Muslim women. Don't go anywhere. Join us on the other side of this. Welcome back to Questions with me, Mohammed Shafiq. I do not know where the time goes. Either I'm really enjoying myself, which I am, and being educated and strengthened, as I hope you all are each week. And this week we're talking about Islamophobia. Now, let's continue with the theme of Islamophobia. Muslim women and those wearing the hijab have been subjected to an increasing level of physical violence. And then there is the issue of amplifying the voice of Muslim women in our public life, and even within our own religious communities. When you go to the mosque, when you go to our Muslim organizations, the lack of spaces for Muslim women, usually in the cellar, or in some cases, they don't even exist in our mosque. Now, many claim that the media is one of the most important platforms where Islamophobia and negative depictions of Muslims is promoted. And we see the rise of domestic violence, not just within our own community, but also wider society. We had, if you look, after the brutal murder of Sarah Everard and the impact that had on communities, and the responsibility on us as men to have a conversation with ourselves to see how we can make the world a better place so women feel more safer. Now, Aqeela Ahmed is MBE, is the chair of the cross-government anti-Muslim hatred working group. She's a very important voice for British Muslims. She's a leader of our community, and I'm really pleased and honoured she's joining us live from London. Aqeela, assalamu alaikum, and welcome back to the programme.
Alaikum salam. How are you? Thanks for having me back.
Thank you so much for having us and giving us your time. Now, how important, as the question I asked Imam Qari Asim earlier, how important is Islamophobia Awareness Month?
So I think, Islamophobia, unfortunately, it's a fact of our lives for British Muslims. Just today, the Minister for Equality, she said that 45% of all religiously motivated hate crime is targeted against Muslims. And that's just the reported hate crime. And so it's, it happens all year round, and it's something that we do need to talk about. But I think at the same time as talking about Islamophobia with a view to try and address it and tackle it and make sure that it doesn't happen, I think we also have to remember all the positives. And there's so much positive surrounding our British Muslim communities. We do so much. I heard you talking to Imam Qari Asim earlier, and he was highlighting just how much we do, in terms of food banks, charitable giving. Our mosques do so much in terms of their own neighborhood, reaching out to other communities, interfaith relations. And of course, we've had the pandemic, and we know that at the front line, there were so many Muslim people at the front line working in the NHS, working in care homes. Some of them ended up dying, as a result of dedicating their life to try and fight COVID. So I think alongside remembering and talking about Islamophobia, we also have to remember about the huge contributions that British Muslim communities make, and also that we are a very important part of British society. And I think coming from that perspective of positivity and strength is really, really important. You know, we shouldn't just talk about ourselves as Muslims in terms of being victims of Islamophobia, because we are so much more important than that. You know, we have people in the cabinet in some of the highest offices in Britain, which are not, which is not the same in other countries. So I think it's really, really important to remember our strength as a community and just how much we have to give to society, and how important and critical we are as part of British society.
We're just going to have a free-flowing conversation, so I hope you bear with me. We talked about Sarah Everard and how we as men had to reflect on our own behaviour and how we can make our space more safer. Was that an important moment in terms of the conversation around domestic violence within the Muslim community as well?
Yeah, the murder of Sarah Everard, I think, was a sort of game changer in terms of, you know, the way society spoke about violence against women and acknowledging just how endemic it was. And I think if I can talk about from the perspective of Muslim women, sure. I think for Muslim women, you know, many of them were saying, actually, you know what, we kind of knew this already, because we suffer hate crime on the street, and predominantly Islamophobic or anti-Muslim hate crime is targeted against Muslim women, and it's perpetrated by white men. Unfortunately, that's what the stats show, not just in the UK, but in Europe and the US. And then also Muslim women are dealing with high levels of domestic violence. And then on top of that, they're also dealing with the fact that they don't feel that they can go to the police when they are dealing with either type of crime, whether it's violence on the street in the form of hate crime, or it's violence from a family member. And they also don't feel safe in terms of talking about abuse they might be suffering in the home, you know, for so many different reasons, or if they might be, you know, experiencing, you know, they might be being pressurized to get married to somebody they don't want to get married to. They don't want to go to authorities and talk about that because they're worried about the consequences for their family. So actually for Muslim women, I think they felt a real sort of complex sort of sense of tension that actually we've known about this for a long time, and now people are talking about it. But this is not new to us, and specifically talking about the relationship of women not being able to trust the authorities, you know, in terms of the police or others, in terms of believing women when they suffer, you know, sexual violence or other forms of violence.
Do you think it's?
But I think.
Sorry, Aqeela. Just for example, I was having a conversation. You know, I don't know if you know, but you know, I've got 4 daughters, and so I've started to look at this in a complete different way than I may have done when I was a teenager. I don't know. When I was younger, it wouldn't have been as much as it should have been. But it wasn't. And I got told by a lot of women who I work with, and certainly said, it's just little things like, you know, don't walk behind a woman when you're getting off a train, you know, cross the road on the other side to make that woman feel a bit more comfortable. It's small little things like that that might look like it's small, but will make a real difference for making that safe space.
I think, you know, for men, understanding how, because violence against women is so endemic, you know, not just the kind of brutal violence or like the, you know, the one that Sarah Everard, the type that Sarah Everard suffered, but the kind of everyday kind of harassment stuff, I think is so endemic. So little stuff like that for women can help them feel a bit safer. But actually, that's just, you know, dealing with the symptoms. It's not dealing with the root causes. And I think you mentioned earlier about having spaces in mosques for women. And I think it's so important that we recognize the status of a woman, not just in Islam, but just generally, but the status that Islam does give. You know, the Quran talks about women and men equally, and the Quran is so clear when it comes to how women should be treated in the same way that men should be treated. And that's why when we treat people equally, when we recognize their value on the same level as men, as our faith tells us to do so, then we're less likely to demonize those women, because we understand their status in society. And I think that's so important. And that's why, you know, you can cross the road when somebody gets off a bus or something. And yeah, sure, you know, for a few moments, that woman will feel like, okay, that guy's not going to attack me. But what would be even better is if we see women at every level of representation within our community, from leadership to making decisions in the mosques, to making decisions in our key organizations, that we're not just silencing them, that we see them in interfaith spaces, and that they have good spaces in the mosques, not just a afterthought, a side entrance, a basement like you mentioned. And once we start doing that, then we will really, really start elevating the status of women, not above men, but alongside men, you know, equally, in terms of how the Quran has outlined, how the Prophet treated women. You know, in our Prophet's mosque, there was no separate space for women, or, you know, come on from the side entrance, or, you know, I've got to speak to the man first, or whatever. There was none of that. We have such a rich history, mashallah and alhamdulillah, of, you know, female scholarship within Islam, but we don't hear about that. We don't see that. We maybe have one or two books that are written in English about that. We need to start doing all of these things, learning about our female scholarship, talking about it, seeing them more across our structures, and then that will really elevate their value. And it will be harder then for people to dehumanize them, to think of them as substandard or less, and think that it's okay to commit acts of violence against them. But let me just also make one point, that this is not just, you know, violence against women is not just a problem for Muslims. It's, you know, it's endemic across society, but, you know, there are different ways that it manifests in different cultures and from different, you know, people of different heritages and backgrounds.
I did have a script here. I'm going to show it you. I had lots of questions, and I've completely ripped this script up because I'm really fascinated by this conversation. So I thank you for being so open. Now, a mutual friend of ours is somebody called Julia Siddiqui, and she's been really, really strong about shining a light on these mosques so that they understand what you just said. And I look to Hazrat Aisha or Hazrat Fatima, Hazrat Khadija, these really strong, prominent women in the life of our Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Yet we don't see that today, and I think that's really important, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, Julie has been working tirelessly in this area. And she's really kind of been, you know, she's done so much more than I could even hope to really bring this, you know, issue to light. And, you know, she's visited mosques. She works in the background with people for so many years. And unfortunately, change has been really slow. And, you know, she's now had to start talking about it much more publicly. But actually, if we start dealing with these problems ourselves, then change, and we all take responsibility. You know, we don't just wait for, you know, activists like Julie. You know, if you see something in your local mosque that's not right, then talk about it. You know, try and work with the committee, try and see what the, you know, why there's a barrier to getting that representation of women, not just in terms of attending the mosque, but also in terms of the decision making and things like that. We've all got our role to play.
Yeah, and in a sense, it's about looking at that issue and not being defensive. And I just hope, obviously, you can disagree with Julie on other issues, but she's coming at it from a really strong position, which is faith-based, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, I think it's really important that we listen to the voices of women. So I'm not sure if you're aware, but I set up a platform for women called She Speaks, We Hear.
One of the questions we've got later on, yeah.
I'm talking about it sort of early. I'm sort of beating you to it. The idea is that, you know, it's a platform where Muslim women have ownership over their own narrative. And I set it up because basically I was so fed up a few years ago at looking at media stories about Muslim women, either in terms of being a victim, you know, domestic violence, FGM, something like that. Although those are important issues, but they're not the only narrative we have.
Yeah. Oh, sorry, Aqeela, you have, I don't know if you've seen it, some Muslim countries, they have official conferences about the role of women, and you look at the panel and they're all men. That gets my blood boiled up, and I'm sure it gets you really angry as well.
Yeah, totally. And it's in these countries, I think it's specifically when it's about Muslim women, because if they had a conference, you know, about women who weren't Muslim, I'm sure they'd be very good in inviting certain celebrities there and other people there, maybe some Instagram influencers.
Aqeela,
but you know,
just stay there. Pause on that thought, and I promise you we'll come back after the break. We've got our final break. When we come back, we continue this fascinating conversation with Aqeela Ahmed, who is a towering figure within the Muslim community, and really honoured and privileged she's joining us tonight. We'll take a quick break. Don't go anywhere. I'll be waiting for you. As will Aqeela join us shortly. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome back. 2 questions with me, Mohammed Shafiq. Sorry, I don't often get fascinated by my guests to the point where we rip up the script and we just let the conversation flow. And that's what we're doing tonight with Aqeela Ahmed. So thank you, Aqeela, for this really important conversation. What would you say to men? Because often we get the thing, I was talking to somebody before I came on air about an Imam who said, it's about how a woman dress. When you talk about sexual assault and rape, it's about how women dress. And I nearly fell off. I fell off the seat when I was listening to this person. He's an Imam. He's in the mosque in a position of responsibility, and he's coming out with this atrocious blaming of the victim. What can us men do to be allies to women and to your cause?
I mean, it's a really good question. And, I was just talking about the platform I set up, She Speaks, We Hear. And the reason I called it She Speaks, We Hear was for a very simple reason, that we should listen to women. And that's what I would say to men and women, actually, because, women can also hold these misconceptions and do victim blaming and stuff. Listen to women. They will tell you, about their experiences. They'll share with you the things they have to put up with. And they will also tell you about the disadvantages and the barriers that they are facing, whether that's in their communities or outside of their community. So I would say that is very much the first thing. The second thing I would say is read the Quran, look at the Sunnah of the Prophet, look up, you mentioned the women, the amazing women we have in our faith. Look them up and find out about female scholars. We have, mashallah, now many female scholars who are doing a lot of good work. And I would say do all of that as well. And then also, it's really important to understand how women are disadvantaged in society through sexism, through misogyny, through racism, through Islamophobia. And, and think about how that's impacting their lives, and look at what you can do as a man personally to deal with some of that, whether that is, if you hear an Imam, victim blaming, like you mentioned, then to call them out. Or if you see that your mosque doesn't have any women on its committee, then to encourage, women to be on that committee. Because let's not forget the critical role that women play across our society, but especially within our Muslim infrastructure. The mosque, for example, many donations come from women. Women are the decision makers often in the home around, during Ramadan, around where charity should be given. And they're the ones who raise the funds for the mosque. They're often the ones who do the cleaning, the cooking, keep the mosque open. They're the backbone, but we so often will hardly see them and not hear from them. And actually, as part of She Speaks, We Hear, we've just launched a podcast. And that podcast is to talk about issues like Islamophobia, like racism, but also to really just get the voices of women out there talking about stuff that you wouldn't normally hear Muslim women talking about, culture, politics, that kind of thing. So engage with stuff like that as well. Set aside time to do that and be an example to your sons. I think that is so important, so that we can stop this cycle of having these kind of misconceptions about women and just kind of perpetuating these kind of sexist sort of stereotypes and things about a woman's place and not being educated and all of that.
You're obviously a very public figure. You're a leader in our community, so people look to you for leadership. How do you balance that out with calling out that misogyny? Because I know during the Palestinian and Israeli conflict, you were accused, accusation made against you. You had to respond to that. How do you balance it out, and how do you keep your cool, if you like? I know we had a conversation at the time about our discussion, but how do you balance all of that?
Yeah, it's not easy, but I'm lucky because I've got a really supportive family. So in my family, I have, lots of strong women. I have very good male role models in my father and in my husband as well. My husband's very supportive. And he never stops me from going out and doing the work I do in our community, because he sees the value in it, and he sees the important contributions that I can potentially make and inshallah be of benefit to our community. Dealing with misogyny and trolling is difficult. It's not easy, I'm not going to lie. But I've had it from across the spectrum. I've been trolled by Tommy Robinson and Anne-Marie Waters. I've had death threats sent to me on Twitter. And then, yes, over the summer, I had trolling from people who called themselves Muslim, people who said that I was worse than Israel, and a whole raft of other things. And that's not easy. But I've learned over time to, I guess, to deal with it, to have a bit of a thick skin, because when you're in the public eye, sometimes you do need to have a bit of a thick skin, and take time out. So when stuff does get quite intense, I will take time out. And generally, as a rule, I have all my notifications off for any of my social media platforms. So I'm not kind of being pinged when I'm getting trolled a lot. I can just dip in, have a look, and then dip out again. And I think that's really important for mental health. And I would say to anybody who's kind of working in this kind of area, it's really important that you kind of protect your mental health. And I know you've had your fair share of negative experiences as well. Yeah,
because sometimes, I mean, if I can be honest with our viewers as well, I took a position on child sexual exploitation and grooming, and the abuse that I got from within the community was because I dared challenge something, and maybe that's the viewpoint. What do we do as a Muslim community to have a mature enough debate so we can have disagreements as you may and me may have, but then still have that element of respect and be grateful for the leadership that you provide?
Yeah, I think we really do need to remember that unity is so important. And when I say unity, I mean unity amongst, yes, Muslim communities, but also we can have unity with other communities. And we have to learn how to disagree with each other. We disagree with people all the time. I don't agree with my husband. I don't agree with, my mom and things, but we still, because love is at the center of that relationship, we still get along, and we still, have a mature relationship. And I think as a community, we kind of need to learn to do that with each other and do that with others. And, our faith really teaches us to treat people with compassion, with love. And I think we need to have that approach, be empathetic in our dealings with people. Understand that people are not perfect. They're going to say things sometimes in the wrong way or take a position you don't agree with. And that's okay. It actually makes our community richer. We have different people have different roles to play. We can't all be playing the same role. I can't be doing what you're doing. You can't be doing what I'm doing. But we complement, in terms of the benefit for our community. And that's just so important. And the benefit for our wider communities as well.
And when you look at prominent Muslim women, we had parliament that didn't have any Muslim women. Now we've got some really powerful voices like Naz Shah, Yasmin Qureshi, Afsana Begum, Zara Sultana, Nusrat Ghani from the Conservatives. There's a real strong, vibrant Muslim women who are amplifying the voice of Muslim women. That's a real significant change, isn't it?
Yeah, that's a huge change. And I think actually we have something like 8 Muslim MPs, and then obviously we've got women in the House of Lords, say the Barsi, and others as well, and they're really good role models. And if you look at, for example, say the Barsi and Naz Shah, they're from 2 completely different parties. They probably have very different stances on many different issues, but they will come together on certain issues and support each other despite having very different views on certain things. And I think that just shows how when people come together in that way, in that goodwill, then you can do so much. And I think that's so important that we do that. And I think it's something that we have to learn. It's something I'm trying to do with She Speaks, We Hear. The other women that are with me, we don't agree on things, and we won't necessarily agree on certain strategies and stuff, but that's okay. I think, we need to have different strategies for dealing with things. For example, anti-Muslim hatred and Islamophobia. I'm chair of the cross-government working group on anti-Muslim hatred. Some people think that means I'm a yes person or something for government, or I'm too close to government. But, I believe that it's very important that we are, as Muslims, in all of these different spaces in the public sphere, talking about anti-Muslim hatred, so we can try and move the dial forward and try and get to a better place in terms of addressing it. And just because I'm in that role doesn't mean that I am, a yes man or anything like that. But, unfortunately, sometimes people will say these things. But, in the same way that we need people in parliament, and we need activists on the ground, it's kind of like a equilibrium, or a kind of, you need people on the ground doing what they're doing, raising awareness about Islamophobia. And then you need people in government, you need people in parliament, and you need people working as well to people who we might not necessarily agree with on so many different things. But actually, it's really important that we're there talking about it and reminding people that this is an issue that needs to be dealt with.
Final question. We've reached the end of our time together. I could go on for hours. I'm sure you could as well. Just what does 2022 hold for you?
So I'm really excited about really continuing to support and empower Muslim women. I'm excited about the work I'm doing with the, I sit on the governing body for NHS CCG in Brighton and Hove. I'm really excited about being able to support the NHS work. I'm involved with some other charities as well. So I'm really looking forward to just doing more work to bring communities together and inshallah really try and overcome the kind of hatred and division that sometimes, rears its ugly head and that we have to deal with.
Well, thank you so much. Honestly, absolutely fascinating conversation. I've really been educated by that. And as I always said to you, I hold you in high regard. And you're a great leader. And you can disagree with Aqeela, Ahmed, but you should do that with a bit of respect and honour. And it's always great to have you on. Thank you so much, Aqeela.
Thanks so much for having me.
Aqeela Ahmed, they're joining us, the chair of the cross-government anti-Muslim hatred group, founder of various things, but alhamdulillah, thank you. As I said, it's really important that, these are people who I often, I don't like to use the term often, these are people who I occasionally would disagree with. And these are people like Qari Imam Asim, Aqeela Ahmed. There will be people who will disagree with me. But we should be able to do that without accusations of treachery, sellouts and coconuts and whatever else. Now, I just want to finish. We've got a really special show next week. We've got a really special guest as well. You'll remember the Christchurch mosque attacks in 2019. And the Imam at the mosque who was leading the Friday prayers as the massacre started, Imam Gamal Fudha of the Al-Nur Mosque in Christchurch, New Zealand. He watched as 42 people were massacred. And he delivered a week later a moving address at that prayer service, if you remember. He's going to be our special guest next week. So tune in 8:30 for a special interview. Thank you to everybody behind the scenes. Thank you to you for entrusting us with your time. From me, Mohammed Shafiq, and the whole team, thank you so much for joining us. Good night. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.